Welcome to the Smart and Snark podcast, where real software engineers and real software managers discuss real software. On this podcast, I have my brother from another mother, Mr. Matt Jaffe. Jaffe is a world-renowned computer scientist and astrophysicist. His role here is to try and educate us all on the value of technology and ultimately why we should submit to its authority. I am myopic middle manager Jason Allison, whose role is to look good in front of upper management. So today is season 1, episode 2, Cards Against Humanity. I think that's is that the topic, Jaffe?
No, I think you had some questions about cardinality.
Cards Against Humanity. Cardinality. Sure. All right. Cardinality it is. So I think Cards Against Humanity is a much better topic, but if technical's got a technical, we can go down that route. Maybe another time.
It's a good game. I don't deny it. But
you'd rather talk shop. I get it. So cardinality, working at Feature Base here, it's a term I hear kind of thrown around. Me coming from defense, it's not necessarily something that I'm all too familiar with. So, tell me about what cardinality is, what makes it important, how does it impact the ins and the outs of online analytical databases?
Are we not going to do a fit check?
Are you wearing pants?
I think, have you ever done an LSAT?
I've never taken the LSATs.
Yeah. So an LSAT is when your feet are kind of straight out in front of you and your body's in this position, and the only thing touching the ground are your hands.
Okay.
I think we should do that, and we should just see who fails first.
This is just a trap. You are literally just trying to trap me in some, arcane physical challenge to make yourself feel better.
It's not a trap. You won the push-up challenge. I mean, I think you probably cheated, but
dominated. You're just upset that I'm like 20 years older than you and I'm still outfitting you. Is that what it's about?
Sure.
All right. So I'll do whatever that is if you first show me what's on your feet, your footwear.
This is getting weird.
So I got these. I got some nice dunks. Oh, come on, man. Oh, come on. All right. So what is this thing? How do I do it in my chair? Do I do it on the floor? Are we really doing this?
I think you can do it on your chair. Well, it depends what kind of chair you have, maybe. But you just prop yourself up and stick your legs out in front of you.
That's it? How long do I do this? I just put lotion on my hands. I'm going to slip and fall over. That's what you want. What are we, like, right. Exercise podcast?
Yeah. Are you ready, set, go? Oh. We're just going to hold it. We'll see who holds it.
Can I bend my knees?
No, your legs got to be straight out in front.
I can't do my legs straight out anymore. They were bent.
All right. Great. I win.
You won.
Let's move on.
All right. Cards against what?
The Cardinal.
The Cardinal.
The cardinality. So what do you think it is? Tell me about the context in which you've heard this word.
I'm in middle management, so I can't let everybody know. I don't know what they're talking about. I gotta kind of do one of these So I'm a good listener, and what I've taken away from it is something like width, right? It's like wide, but I really don't know. I don't want to look stupid in front of the other engineers, so it would be great if you could, throw me a bone here and help me understand.
Okay, well, let's go back to your dresser. You've got, and I know you've got. I know you're into socks, right? So you've got lots of socks, and I know you've got. I don't know. You probably have over 1,000 pairs of socks, right?
All the food.
Yeah, and I know some are in your downstairs dresser, and some are in the upstairs dresser that you run concurrently for high availability, because you don't want to get locked out of your bedroom and not be able to get to your socks. So let's just say the cardinality of Jason's socks is 1,127. You have 1,127 pairs.
Why that number?
I just knew it was over 1,000. Do you know? Do you have that off the top of
your?
Yeah,
it's 1,126.
Yeah. Okay. So that's the cardinality of Jason's socks. That's the number of different pairs of socks Jason has. But if we're storing things in a database, we're not just storing like that the socks exist. We're storing attributes about the socks, and one of those attributes might be color, right? So the question then is, what is the cardinality of the colors of Jason's socks? And we know that Jason is a super boring guy, and he only has black and gray socks. So the cardinality of the colors of Jason's socks is 2. So while you have over 1,000 pairs of socks, they only have 2 different colors. So the cardinality, to put it succinctly, is the number of distinct values in a set, in any set. And so if the set is all your socks, there's over 1,000. If the set is all the colors of your socks, there's only 2 distinct values, black and gray.
So it's just a distinct. So it's just a distinct of a column. Is that what those things are called?
Yeah, and it's the word itself comes from set theory in mathematics. So you can have a set of anything, and all a set is just a collection of objects, none of which are the same, just a collection of unique
So
things.
why so many syllables just to describe an attribute? Like cardinality. It's just the attribute of something, right? The set of the attributes. Is that it?
It's the number of distinct values in a database. It's the number of distinct values that a column can have, which is not the same as the number of things in the table or things in the column, because we might have the value black 700 times in your dresser, but the cardinality of the color column is only 2, because only black and gray are the only unique values there.
Okay.
Now, why did we need so many syllables? I don't know. I didn't come up with the word, but
So
these mathematicians.
okay. So but why even make it a thing? What is important about the concept of cardinality with respect to databases?
So if you're storing everything in the silliest way possible, like the most naive way possible, where you're just like, oh, I've got socks, and they have a name and a color and a brand and a size, and a length, and I'm just writing those things straight out in a row, and I'm writing BLACK and calf length and blah blah blah. You don't care about cardinality. But if as soon as you start to try to make any optimizations into how you store data, cardinality becomes very, very important, because the easiest thing to optimize in a database is when you have lots of like repeated data. You have if we wanted to use more syllables, you would say like it's very low entropy data. There's not a lot of variation in it. Yeah, right. Yeah, definitely write that one down.
Low. How do you and
Entropy.
INTR?
Nope. Oh, just look it up. So anyway, you've got very low entropy data, which means it's highly compressible. So if your data is highly compressible, you can use less storage to store it, right? So you can imagine what's taking your socks, instead of storing BLACK and GRAY or GREY, depending on if you're in the UK. What if we just mapped each of those to a number? Instead of storing black, we store 1. Instead of storing gray, we store 2.
I thought we're base
Over,
0. No, we are base 0. You've made this very clear. It's 0 and 1.
yeah, but the other gray had to be in 0. Well, also sometimes you don't have a value. Sometimes you have some missing data, and so you have to have something to represent that as well. That was a good save. Um, so so instead of storing black and gray over and over, so those are 4 characters or 5 characters, you're storing 1 character each time for a total savings of 3,000 characters. So that's pretty nice, right? You can save a lot of storage. Now, saving storage is nice, but people tell you storage is cheap, right? Like I don't care that much about storage. I don't need safe storage. Like this complicates everything. What you have to understand is that the main driver of performance of a database tends to be IO, input output. So Anytime you're moving data around, you might be moving data from disk into memory. You might be moving data from memory into your CPU cache and onto your processor. You might be moving data across the network in a distributed database. Anytime you do that, those tend to be the bottlenecks for database performance, is moving data around, not the actual processing of the data, not stuff on that's happening on the CPU, but the movement of the data.
It's not just storage on disk. It's storage in memory, it's storage in transit, all that storage. So anytime that you can reduce the overall payload, whether on disk, in memory, or in transit, is an optimization. And in our example, it's just 5-6 letters per entry, but I'm imagining that if there are 100 characters and a billion entries, that adds up.
Yeah, and so you can imagine low cardinality columns tend to compress very well, and higher cardinality columns tend to not compress as well. And so, just to give another example, if you're storing addresses in a database, which is something that's done very, very commonly, you typically break it up into country, state or province, city, street address, and countries. There's only a couple hundred countries in the world, so that's relatively low cardinality, right? If you're storing addresses for hundreds of millions or billions of people, you've only got a couple hundred countries. State province, that's going to be quite a bit higher. There's probably tens of thousands of states and provinces across those 100 countries. And then cities, I'm sure there's hundreds of thousands of cities and towns, maybe even millions. And then the actual street address, there's probably a billion street addresses in the world. So you can see where you're going to have some columns where the cardinality is very low and you might be able to compress them very well. And you're going to have some where the cardinality is much higher and you might just want to store the raw value. And there's trade-offs all the way along.
So real quick, is there any relationship between the different sets? So for example, if we're doing addresses, like you said, and one of the streets was Elm Street, which probably there's lots of Elm Streets, even though it's going to be in different states, different cities, does that compression still apply, even though it's not part of the same kind of state even?
That's an unusually astute question, Jason. So there's lots of different ways to compress data. Yeah, look at this guy. You can look at like general purpose compression tools, like gzip or something. If you want to just zip up a big file to send to someone, you can just throw a general purpose compression algorithm at it, and you'll get very good compression. However, at the cost of computation, right? You have to decompress that data before you can do anything to it. Databases usually try to compress things in such a way that they can still operate on them in that compressed state, and that they don't lose. They don't have to pay too big a cost to decompress them, even if that means you don't get quite as good overall compression. So while there might be lots of streets that have Elm in them somewhere, or lots of different variants of Elm Street, you probably wouldn't want to compress things in such a way that took advantage of that, because if you were doing a query like, show me all the people that live on this particular Elm Street, you need to be able to get to that one and none of the others specifically. And so to do that, if you use general purpose compression, you probably have to decompress everything, which would take a huge amount of time before finding Elm Street. So that's why in the first example I gave, you just substitute each value with a number. That kind of thing, that kind of dictionary encoding is much more common than a general purpose compression algorithm a lot of the time.
I can guarantee you my word of the day tomorrow around the teams is going to be cardinality. This might be, it only took, 3 episodes for you to actually teach me something? I'm picking up what you're putting down here.
I thought it was going to be entropy. Entropy? Did you write that down?
Maybe. I don't know if there's any ink in the pen, but Okay. So I'm a user for database, and I do have high cardinality. What does that mean? I mean, does it mean I should be using a type of database, or should I be doing some types of compression as you were mentioning? Like, what does that mean to me?
Yeah, so it's all going back to our last episode, it's all workload dependent, depending on
Not the well, yeah, not the data, but the okay.
well, yeah. So it's given that some of your data is very high cardinality, some of it's low cardinality, whatever. What types of queries are you doing? Is your workload analytical or transactional? And then beyond that, so let's assuming it's analytical because that's the more interesting space. Let's be honest. Um, Assuming it's analytical, what is the workload like? Are you doing lots of sort of segmentation type stuff? Are you doing lots of grouping? Are you calculating statistics across things? That's all. That's all going to affect your choice of database and your choice of how you configure that database. Because typically, for an analytical workload, you're going to choose some type of columnar database, meaning that it stores the data separately for each column rather than storing all the contents of each row or each record together. Did that make sense?
I'm writing down another podcast idea, but look, giving you the
Okay.
look of being a good listener.
Yeah. All right. Okay. Yeah. That's. I'm sure our audio only listeners will appreciate that.
Mm.
You
Go
need to
go
make a
on.
sound whenever you.
Uh, hmm.
Hmm.
So what haven't we talked about with cardinality? Are there any pitfalls? Are there any challenges, performance, anything people should be worrying about?
Yeah, I mean, once you kind of get into um, different types of indexes and different optimizations. So the reason I brought up columnar was you're probably going to choose different settings for each column in your database, depending on a variety of things, including cardinality. And sometimes, if you have a very high cardinality column, a choosing the wrong type of index could be disastrous. It could take up way more space in some cases, or just be incredibly slow to query. So there's cardinality is a big thing to start thinking about when you start tuning a database for your particular needs.
Awesome. Unless you think there's anything I'm missing, I've been enjoying this, and I feel 10 times smarter than I was before we started.
No, I think we're good, and I think we've got some good fodder for future episodes, and will really help you organize your socks more effectively.
I need to go buy some more socks. I wanna hit the upper echelon of your counting ability, and we'll see how that goes.
Yeah, you gotta start rolling over those UN 16s.
It is March Madness, but what does North Carolina have to do with this?
Yeah, no, like 7 people will get that.
All right, Mr. Jaffe, unless there's anything else, I'd like to thank all the listeners for tuning in today. Any parting thoughts?
As always, if you have any feedback for us, or want to tell Jason to go find another podcast to be on, shoot it our way. At some point, we should tell you how to do that. But I'm sure there's a comment section on wherever you're consuming this.
Yeah.
So hit us up.
At Jaffe.
Yeah, that's right. All right, I'm gonna kill it later.
Ciao.